Oh, hey now, kiddies. It's that time again. Yes, it's Friday evening, and you're on the bottom. And if it's Friday evening on the bottom, that can mean only one thing. Yes, Fatman's Fandango. Your 3 solid hours of the sultry, soulful sounds of the Jerry Garcia solo catalog. And boy, do we have a good one for you here tonight. We've got a big night of music coming on from the Mousetrap. We've got High Rider appearing later on with their Jerry Garcia birthday celebrations. So this week we got nothing but front-to-back hardcore jamming Jerry Garcia solo musics. So no point in talking about it, and we should just get on into it. Poppa Stompa with you here. This is going to be episode number 26 for August the 4th, 2017. So sit back, pop yourself open a cold one, roll up something kind, and buckle up, kids, because this one's going to be a hoedown from the front to the back. So here we go. Jerry Garcia solo music across all eras and all bands for your listening pleasure here tonight, only on Batman's Fandango. Enjoy.
and get you a stone. Papa's on the highway, still driving crew. Sisters in the big house, every day's a thrill. Tough mama, can I blow a little smoke on you? Dark beauty, won't you move over and give me some room? It's my duty to take you down to the river where the flowers bloom. Just on the right, you can see it all the way down to the sky. Dark beauty, long night's journey in your eyes. Sweet goddess, on a shining light and changing wind. Don't be modest, you know who you are, where you've been. Come on, when I'm drinking, it's over fast. Tough beat, strangers coming on in advance. receive. Today on the countryside it was harder than a crutch. Been alone upon a ridge and all I did was run. Dark beauty must be trying to carve another notch. Just falling, world of illusions at my door. I ain't hauling any of my limbs to the marketplace anymore. Prison walls are crumbling down, there is no end in sight. Gained some recognition, but I lost my appetite. Dark beauty at the corner late tonight. That's alright, mama. Any way you do, that's alright. That's alright. That's alright now, mama. Any way you do. My mama told me, Papa done told me too. That gal you're fooling with, she ain't no good for you. But that's alright. That's alright. That's all right now, mama. Any way you do. One and one is two, two and two is four. Wait, baby, when you walking out the door, that's alright. That's alright. That's alright now, mama. Any way you do. That's all. That's all. That's all. Right now, mama. Anyway,
Let's take it.
Touch I like. Oh, that's a touch I like. Pretty eyes, so clear and bright, bright up every night. That's a touch I like. That's a touch I like. Oh, that's a touch I like. I'd like to come and see you sometime, baby. touch I like. That's a touch I like. Oh, that's a touch I like. Those ways, that sweet old-fashioned taste. That's a touch I like. That's a touch I like. Oh, that's a touch I like. I'd like to come and see you sometime, baby. You sure look pretty. I'd be on my very best behavior. All the doors comes for you. Trying to be winning. Losing all my cool with your baby. Red ribbon in your hair. I'm kinda glad that you put it there. That's the touch I like. That's the touch I like. Oh, that's the touch I like. Oh, that's a touch I like. I drive a mail train, mama, and by a thread. I've been up all night, mama, leaning on the windowsill. If I die on top of the hill, warn you when your train gets lost. Biloxi. The pretty girls are swimming in the sea. Oh, they look like sisters in the ocean. And the boy will fill his pail with salt and water. And the storms blow in from off towards New Orleans. The air is filled with vapors from the sea. The boy went to the pool beside the ocean. He sees creatures from a dream of the water. The sky is red from off towards New Orleans. Stars can find Biloxi. Stars can see their faces in the sea. We are walking in the evening by the road. are splashing naked in the ocean, and the storm blows in from off towards New Orleans. Storm blows in from off towards New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. There you go, kiddies. The first hour of our lovely Fatman's Fandango for Friday, August the 4th, 2017. We're just throwing everything together in one big jumble because we're pre-partying for a big night of Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia music live from the Mousetrap with High Rider to celebrate Jerry's 75th birthday. We love you, Jerry. Wish you were still here with us. So right there we had some smoking music from Legions of Mary. We started off with Let It Rock from the April the 12th show in 1975. Legions of Mary show from May 21st, 1975. We took a Tough Mama. And then we had All Right Mama and Touch I Like from Jerry Garcia and Friends from 2/6/72. Train to Cry from Jerry Garcia and Merle Saunders. June the 30th, 1972, Smoking Show. The best in my book. I love it. And then a Save Mother Earth into Imagine from Jerry and Friends, once again from February 6th, 1972. And then we ended it all off there with that utterly epic Biloxi from Jerry and Merle, live, once again, June 30th, 1972. We've got a whole heaping hollop of Jerry Garcia music still to come. Poppa Stompa with you here live from the bottom. Fatman's Fandango is the show. Here are 3 solid hours of the sultry, soulful sounds of the Jerry Garcia solo catalog. Well, time to really get it on. So I want everybody to reach on down, tighten up those shoes, because we don't want them flying off and wanging somebody ahead, because you're going to be moving a lot with this one. Here you go, folks. More Jerry Garcia Band. Legions of Mary, Jerry and Friends, right here, only on Fatman's Fandango. Enjoy.
Gotta be free, babe, to roam around. You can love me if you want, but I do declare when I get restless, I've got to move somewhere. I'm a road gonna be. Gotta keep on keeping on. And I love the life I live, and I'm gonna live the life I love. Road gonna be. my friend when all friends go? Don't talk about you to me. Who is my friend when all friends are gone? Talk about you, about you. Who is my friend when all friends are gone? Who always with me when I'm not around? Talk about you, nobody but you, nobody but you. Oh, who is the sugar in my tea? Don't talk about you, nobody but you. Who is the sugar in my tea? Talk about you. Oh yeah. Who is the sugar in my tea? When I'm in trouble, who sees about me? You. Oh yeah. Talk about you. Oh. Who's the soul in my band? What about you? Oh yeah. Who's that song in my brain? Who's the doctor on my seat? What about you? Oh yeah. Who don't have love in my way? Talk about you. Who knows how to love in my way? Talk about you. Oh, how to love in my way. Oh, that girl, love you. Talk about you. Oh, yeah. roaches long. The woman I love, she's on that train. Well, I went down to the station, my baby tried to gate. Asked the station master, train running late. Tried to give me away for the 444. Tell you for that train don't run here anymore. Train. Running around the track. Took away my baby. You know it ain't bringing it back. Took away my baby. You know it ain't bringing it back. Took away my baby. You know it ain't bringing it back. Thanks a lot.
Oh, yeah, baby. Woo! Tell me that didn't get your skin a-tingling and your nether regions flying around at breakneck speed. Oh, yeah. Poppa Stompa with you here on a beautiful Friday night, coming to you from the bottom. Fatman's Fandango is the show, your 3 solid hours of the sultry, soulful sounds of Jerry Garcia's solo catalog. We got a big night here at the Mousetrap. We're going to be celebrating Jerry Garcia's 75th birthday right here with our good buddies, the last of the high hard ones, High Rider, laying down the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia music all night long. It's going to be a hoedown. But I digress. We got more Jerry to play. What do we have there, that set? Well, let me tell you, besides having a very tired constitution and aching feet from dancing so much, we started off that beautiful set with a Roadrunner from Legions of Mary from 4/20/1975. Definitely smoking something on that day. And then we cruised on into a Made to Lover from Jerry Garcia and Friends once again, February 6, 1972. Great show. Highly recommend picking it up. Then that Smokin' Talking About You from Legions of Mary, March 15th, 1975. That's a smoker, man. It started off as a soundboard, then went to audience, unfortunately, but it doesn't matter. That's some Blues Brothers shit, man. Then we cruised on into the ultimate jam, Expressway to Your Heart. Jerry and Friends, once again, from that February show from 1972. Like I said, if you don't have this in your collection, there's something wrong with you. Now we ended it all off with the Coup de Grace, the Holy of All Holies, the Pinnacle of the Mountain, the Mystery Train from Legions of Mary, 4/13/75. Woo! Love that one to death. Well, we're going to cruise on. We got a little bit more music for you here before we have to toddle off and bring High Rider on stage. So I'm going to crank at you about another 40 minutes of music. But we're going to church, baby. Get out your Sunday best, your nice hat, get your gloves on, because we're going to the Holy Rock to hear the Reverend Jerome Garcia lay it down and bring you on home. Right here, only on Fatman's Fandango. Enjoy, kids. Amen.
been working so hard for oh so long. What do you got to show? Take a look around. Let's pack up the things and go. Open up your eyes, little darling. I've been never here no more. Open up your eyes, little darling. I've been here for about too long. Open up your eyes, little darling. It's time to move on. One December evening on a cold winter day, I just finished bringing wood into the kitchen when I heard my man say, said, Elijah, you better look around. Things ain't like they used to be. Time's getting hard for you and me. Come on, Daddy, time to shake things down. Big old red box, we ain't got no dough, and it seems like we ain't got enough time for food around no more. I've been working so hard for oh so long. What do you got to show? Take a look for eyes, little darling. Let's pack up things and go. Open up your eyes, little darling. Been here no more. Open up your eyes, little darling. I've been here for about too long. Open up your eyes, little darling. It's time to move along.
worked so hard for oh so long. What do you got to show? Open up your eyes, little darling. Let's pack up things and go. Open up your eyes, little darling. Don't want to be here no more. Open up your eyes, little darling. Been here for about too long. Open up your eyes, little darling. It's time to move on. Time getting hard. so hard for oh so long. What you got to show? Open up your eyes, little darling. Let's pack up the things and go. Open up your eyes, little darling. I don't wanna live here no more. Open up your eyes, little darling. I've been here for about too long. Open up your eyes, little darling. It's time to move along. Cause ain't no breaking the red rocks. We ain't got no time. It seems like we ain't got enough time to move out no more. Working out here for so long. What do you got to show? Open up your eyes, little darling. Let's put up the here and go. Open up your eyes, little darling. I don't want to get here no more. Open up your eyes, little darling. Been here for about too long. Open up your eyes, little darling. It's time to move along.
Thanks a lot. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Dear Prudence, let me see you smile. Dear Prudence, like a little child. The clouds will be a daisy chain, so let me see you smile again, dear Prudence. Won't you let me see you smile? Look around, round, round. Look around. daisy chain. So let me see you smile again, dear Prudence. Won't you let me see you smile? Look around, round, round. Look around, round, round. Look around, round, round. Look around, round, round. Early one morning, the sun was shining. I was laying in bed. I wondered if she'd changed that much, if her hair was still red. Her parents said our life together sure was gonna be tough. They never did like Mama's homemade dress. Papa's bank book wasn't big enough. I'm standing on the side of the road, rain pouring on my shoes, heading out for the East Coast. God knows I paid some dues getting through. Tangled up in blue.
Tangled up in blue. Tangled up in blue. Tangled up in blue.
She was married when we first met, soon to be divorced. I helped her out of a jam, I guess, but I used a little too much force. Drove that car as far as we could, abandoned it out west. Separated on the docks that night, Buster Green, it was best. She turned around to me as I was walking away. I heard her say over my shoulder, we'll meet again someday on the avenue. Tangled up in blue. I went out to the great Northwest, working as a cook for a spell. I never did like it all that much. One day the act just fell. I went down to New Orleans, but I was lucky to be employed, working for a while on a fishing boat right outside of Delacroix. And all the while I was alone, the past was close behind. I known a lot of women, but she never escaped my mind, and I just grew tangled up in blue. topless place, and I stopped in for a beer. I just kept looking at the side of her face in the spotlight so clear. Later on when the crowd thinned out and I was just about to do the same, she's standing there in back of my chair, said, "Tell me, don't I know your name?" I muttered something underneath my breath. She studied the lines of my face. I must admit I felt a little uneasy when she bent down to tie the laces of my shoes. Tangled up in blue. She lit the burner on the stove and offered me a pipe. I thought you'd never say hello, she said. You look like the silent type. She opened up a book of poems and handed it to me, written by an Italian poet from the 13th century. And every one of them words rang true and glowed like burning coals, rolling off of every page like it was written in my soul. From me to you, tangled up in blue. Cafes at night and revolution in the air. He started into messing with slaves. Something inside of him died. She had to sell everything she owned and froze up inside. Later on, when the bottle fell out, I became withdrawn. The only thing I know how to do is to keep on keeping on like a bird that flew. Tangled up in blue. I gotta get back to her somehow. All the people that we used to know, they're an illusion to me now. Some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. Don't know how it all got started. I don't know what they're doing with their lives. Me, I'm still on the road, headed for another joy. We always feel the same, we just saw it from a different point. Tangled I wanna say to my sisters and my brothers, keep the faith. When the storm flies and the wind blows, go on at a steady pace. When the battle is fought and the victory's won, we can all shout together, we have overcome. We'll talk to the Father and the Son when we make it to the promised land. When we walk together, little children, we don't ever have to worry. Through this world of trouble, we gotta love one another. Then let's take a fellow man by the hand, try to help him to understand. We can all be together forever and ever when we make it to the promised land. Our Bible reads, thou shalt not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, no, for the pestilence that walketh in the darkness, nor for the destruction that waiteth in the noonday hour. We walk together, little children, we don't ever have to worry. Through this world of trouble, we gotta love one another. Let us take a fellow man by the hand, try to help him to understand. We can all be together forever and ever when we make it to the promised land. Chain is all made up, way beyond the blue. Let us do the very best that we can while we're traveling through this land. We can all be together, shaking our hand when we make it to the promised land. Children, when we make it to the promised land, make it to the promised land. Make it to the promised land. Make it to the promised land. When you make it to the promised land, make it to the promised land. We can all be together forever and ever when we make it to the promised land. We can all be together forever and ever when we make it to the promised land.
All right, kiddies, there you go. The last heap and hunk of Fatman's Fandango for this August 4th, 2017. Poppa Stompa coming to you live from the bottom on a lovely Friday evening. I hope you all enjoyed the music we were slinging at you tonight. I was enjoying bringing it to you. Let me give you a little rundown of what we just heard. Had a Ain't No Bread in the Bread Box. Jerry Garcia Band live, November the 9th, 1991. That was a pure Jerry release. And then we finish it off with the Dear Prudence, Tangled Up in Blue, and My Sisters and Brothers, all off the JGB Live album, which everybody knows very well. It's a classic. If you don't have it, please go out and pick it up. You will not be disappointed. All right, time to toddle off here. We got High Rider coming up in about an hour at the Mousetrap, so I gotta sling some Grateful Dead music for all these people filling up the corral at the Mousetrap. Keep them moving, keep them grooving. So I'm gonna say adios. Muchas gracias for listening, folks. Keep on keeping on. We'll see you on the flip side.